Mother Spirit, Father Spirit, where are you? In the sky song, in the forest sounds your cry. What to give you, what to call you, what am I? Many drops are in the ocean, deep and wide. Sunlight bounces off the ripples to the sky. What to give you, what to call you, who am I? I am empty, time flies from me, what is time? Dreams eternal, fears infernal haunt my heart. What to give you, what to call you, oh my God. Mother Spirit, Father Spirit, take our hearts. Take our breath and let our voices sing our parts. Take our hands and us work to shape our art.
Thank you, Rachel, Kevin, and Jasmin, for singing and playing us into this space. Buenos días y bienvenidos. Welcome to Cedar Lane Unitarian Universalist Church. I'm the Reverend Katie Romano Griffin. My pronouns are she and Asia, and I'm one of the ministers serving this religious community. If you're new with us this morning, I hope you will please let us know in the chat. And if you're comfortable, fill out the form that's linked there so that we can send a gift to you. I'd like to invite all members to attend today's 1 p.m. annual meeting, and there will also be registration info in the chat for you to click on. So please do register. We hope to see you there. Part of membership is attending the annual meeting. I'd like to celebrate with you all new member Amy Martian, who joined just this week. Welcome, Amy. Please do welcome Amy in the chat and in the comments. I'd also like to shout out to member Carol Berteau. Carol is one of 7 people who will receive the 2021 Stewardship of Partnership Award from the Unitarian Universalist Partner Church Council. This award is given to those who provide exceptional care to congregational partnerships. Carol's 15-year engagement with our partner church in Transylvania has been instrumental in sustaining our connections, especially as our partnership reaches its 25th anniversary in 2021. Cedar Lane has helped 70 students attend university, and last fall, Share the Plate helped to raise nearly $1,700 towards much needed roof repairs in our partner church's 400-year-old building. I'd also like to invite you all to please consider attending the Celebration of Life service that we are holding on Saturday, June 19th at 11 a.m. for one of our beloved members, Carol Richardson. Whether you are joining us for the first time or you've been with us for a lifetime, know that you are welcome here. Whoever you are, whomever you love, however you arrived at our time together, you are welcome here. Whatever your beliefs, gender identity and expression, immigration status, or political views, you are welcome here. Thank you for taking a chance and taking the time to worship with us today. If you've been attending for a while and are interested in joining us as a member of this religious community, please reach out to Nicole Kazi, our membership coordinator. I know that we are here as a community to support you through life's ups and downs, and our pastoral visitors embody that. They are present to you today in the chat and available through the email pastoralcare@cedarlane.org. We enter this worship experience of reflection and remembrance, of repair and restoration, reckoning and renewal. This morning, we acknowledge that we gather as Cedar Lane UU Church on the traditional land of the Piscataway, Nacotchtank, Anacostia people, past and present. We honor with gratitude the land itself and people who have protected it through the generations. This calls us to commit to direct and tangible support for local and national Indigenous movements which seek to protect the environment and restore Indigenous ways of life. We remember also those who were enslaved and worked this land without choice or reward. We remember all who've gone before, whose vision and labor helped create and sustain this religious community. It is in this spirit we gather. In this spirit we begin. Now, let us greet and welcome each other in the chat.
And so the seed becomes a flower, and in its hour reproduces dreams and flowers. And so the root becomes a trunk, but then a tree and seeds of trees, and springtime sap and summer shade and autumn leaves, and shape of poems and dreams more than free. And so it is with those who make of life a flower, a tree, a dream, reproducing on into its own and mine and your infinity, its beauty and its life in you and me. And so it was and is with you, the seed, the flower, the root, the tree, the dream, the you, this poem I make from poems you made for you. Come, let us worship together.
Good morning. I am Babzz, and my pronouns are they, them. I am lighting my chalice in Bethesda, Maryland. As I read the chalice lighting words, I invite you to share in the chat where you are lighting your chalice from. We kindle the chalice to remind us of the light that brightens our lives. We gather many different flowers to remind us of the unique contribution each person makes to our shared faith. As we gather here, we remind ourselves that we, like the flowers, are many. We, like the light, are one. In our community of faith, may we, though many, be one in spirit, in truth, and in service.
Good morning. I'm Chernikoff, President of Cedar Lane's Board of Trustees. Early in my term as President of the Board, I read the UUA Commission on Institutional Changes report, Widening the Circle of Concern. This brought to mind the importance of the changes it spoke to at the national, regional, and congregational levels of our movement. Being a leader in our congregation, I asked myself how these needs might manifest within our congregation and each of us individually, and how to make progress in these areas. One of the ways was to look at our institutional tools. This led the board to adopt an update to the charter of our Mosaic Makers Committee. I hope in the coming year or two that this group can be relaunched and become part of this process. As part of this update, we considered how that group or others might work on adoption of the eighth principle in Unitarian Universalism. As we were considering how to make this happen, the board was approached by a number of members with a grassroots effort to bring about the adoption of the eighth principle. Working with them, the board created a charge for that task force that this group would become. Many of you have experienced the work that they've been involved in. I would like to thank them for all their efforts to date and reiterate that the board endorses Cedar Lane's adoption of the eighth principle in Unitarian Universalism and urges all eligible members to vote for its adoption at this afternoon's annual congregational meeting. I'd like to thank you, and I look forward to seeing you at 1 o'clock Eastern this afternoon for our annual congregational meeting. Thank you.
Each Sunday, we share the offering plate with a community organization in concert and alignment with our mission and our ministry. Our offering reminds us that the act of giving is as essential to our spiritual well-being as anything else we do here on Sunday mornings. We are deeply grateful for the incredible generosity of our members and friends throughout this time in support of our mission and to the many community organizations that we partner with in service of our mission. Today, our offering will be shared with Meadville Lombard Theological School, a Unitarian Universalist seminary in Chicago that educates progressive religious leaders grounded in the Unitarian Universalist values of justice, equity, and compassion. Through its 175 years of history, Meadville Lombard has charted a visionary path that builds upon the diverse strands of faith traditions and commitments to social justice that continues to shape its educational model into the future. As a theological school, Meadville Lombard has kept an eye towards the changing landscape of theological education and sought to be adaptive, resilient, and committed to nurturing future leaders who can lead across multiple faith traditions and religious orientations. It is this vision that inspired me in 1994 to choose to become a student at Meadville Lombard and to graduate into the ministry in 1998. And I know my colleagues, the Reverend Katie Romano Griffin and Dana Edwards, felt a similar call to attend Meadville Lombard that we are proud and honored to be a part of. Your financial support today will help the school continue to prepare the next generation of progressive faith leaders who are critically needed in our world. Thank you for your generous support.
Hi, everyone. My name is Michaela Hoffman, and I am currently finishing my second year here at Meadville Lombard Theological School in the MDiv program. I never would have thought years ago that I could have said something like that, nor could I have ever imagined the transformation that I would be able to undergo and that I've already experienced here in this learning community in such a powerful way. Ministry is a really tremendous calling, and it asks those who begin the journey to ready themselves to be broken open, to examine the pieces of themselves that are informed by privilege and personal and cultural and social history and trauma and much more, and then put ourselves back together in a way that makes us best capable of service to humanity and our planet. Meadville Lombard has done this for me and much, much more. There's nothing that could ever replace the learning and growing that I've done thanks to our phenomenal faculty and some very, very good friends of mine that I've made here at Meadville. And donors to Meadville walk on this path with us too, because the cost of seminary is staggering and presents a huge roadblock to many of our journeys. So your support of this school stewards Unitarian Universalism and the other denominations served by graduates of Meadville. And I cannot adequately express my gratitude to you all for your support of my ministry and the world transforming ministries of my classmates. Thank you. Thank you. 1,000 times thank you.
We gather each week to bear witness to our joys and our sorrows as companions on life's journey. Together, we recognize the cycle of life and death, the circle of love, compassion, and witness that is at the heart of this religious community. Our hearts are with those whose primary spiritual practice is parenting in a pandemic. We hold in our circle of caring those who live with grief or chronic pain, illnesses seen and unseen, mental illnesses, or addiction. Those who care for family members in ill health and who are experiencing job loss and financial insecurity. We hold in our hearts the family and friends of the 4 2021 Walter Johnson High School graduates who were involved in the fatal crash which happened in West Virginia this past Wednesday. Camille Gagna and Jaden Smith, both 18, died in the crash. The other 2 occupants were injured but are recovering. The group was taking a trip to celebrate their recent graduation. Our caring extends beyond Cedar Lane to all those whose lives are taken or impacted by violence and calamities in the world. Just this weekend, there were 3 mass shootings. So let us hold in our hearts, the communities of Austin, Texas, Chicago, Illinois, and Savannah, Georgia. Let us pray for all who were killed or injured in these mass shootings. And let us also remember that this weekend was the 5th anniversary of the Pulse shooting in Orlando, where 49 people were killed in what was once a sanctuary for an entire generation of LGBTQIA community members in the Orlando area. We remember you. You are not forgotten. Presente, presente, presente. I invite you now into a time of silence where you may share the names of those who you are remembering today, whether it is the anniversary of a loss or a recent loss. You may lift up those names in the chat so that we may remember with you. May it be so. Amen and blessed be.
We come from the fire, living in the fire. Go back to the fire, turn the world around. We come from the water, living in the water. Go back to the water, turn the world around. We come from the mountain, living on the mountain. Go back to the mountain, turn the world around. Whoa, so is life. So is life. Whoa, so is life. So is life. Do you know who I am? Do I know who you are? See we one another clearly. Do we know who we are? Do you know who I am? Do I know who I am? See we one another clearly. Do we know who we are? See we one another clearly. See we one another clearly. Do we know who we are? Oh, so is life, Abatiwa. So is life. Oh, so is life, Abatiwa. So is life. Water make the river, river wash the mountain. Fire make the sunlight, turn the world around. Heart is of the river, body is the mountain. Spirit is the sunlight, turn the world around. We are of the Spirit, truly of the Spirit. Only can the Spirit turn the world around. Whoa, so is life, Abatiwa. So is life. Whoa, so is life, Abatiwa. So is life. Whoa, so is life, Abatiwa. So is life. Whoa, so is life, Abatiwa. So is life.
Hello, friends. It is good to be together on this beautiful day. The Flower Communion is an annual Unitarian Universalist ritual begun at the Unitarian Church in Prague in 1923 by the Reverends Maha and Norbert Capek. They created the ceremony to bring more beauty and ritual into the worship service, and also to find a way to embody a foundational religious principle in Unitarian Universalism, that every person has beauty and value, worth and dignity. That every person brings something unique and vital to the community, and when we bring in all of ourselves with one another and with the world, something incredible can be co-created together, the beloved community. So the Flower Communion is a ritual celebration of beauty through diversity, an acknowledgement that diversity is a blessing, not a threat or a curse, and that we must continue to work so that people, like flowers, are appreciated for their unique beauty and are not rejected simply because they are different. Now, those of you who love to garden, and I'm not one of them, you know that not only is each species of flower different, each needs different things for it to thrive. Similarly, as human beings, we too need different things to thrive and to be spiritually fed. Some of us need to hear about God's love and saving grace. Some of us need to hear our connection to the earth and the rhythm of the seasons. Some of us need to hear about the power of human community to heal, to save, to create justice. Some of us need to hear about the struggles of aging well. Some of us need to hear about raising spiritually grounded children and youth in an increasingly secular and disconnected world. Some of us want to know how to organize around climate change. Some of us want to know how to fix our broken immigration system. Some of us want to know how to protect our democracy. Some of us need to hear the peaceful tones of classical music. Others, the gospel call of the Spirit. And still others, the multicultural rhythms challenging us to thrive. Now, in spite of our different needs, we come together as a religious community, knowing that we are more than just the sum total of our individual needs, that we cannot meet everyone's needs all the time, that church is not a popularity contest or a service provider, but that together we can feed one another enough to make a difference in each other's lives and in the world. So, our commitment to diversity actually makes a unique statement in our community that here, people of all backgrounds, all races and ethnicities, all nationalities, all sexual orientations, all gender expressions, all economic circumstances, all abilities and ages are welcome, loved, and accepted for who they are as they are. But this isn't an easy vision to live into or practice. It isn't just a mere fact of diversity that our religious community strives to embrace. As Professor Diana Eck explains in her powerful book, Encountering God, A Spiritual Journey from Bozeman to Benares, we seek to foster an energetic engagement with diversity. So it's not just talking about diversity or tolerating diversity, as in you can come, but you keep your experiences to yourself. Nor is it a superficial celebration of diversity, as the cliche goes, but actually engaging with it. Or as Professor Eck explains, actively seeking understanding across lines of difference, holding our deepest differences not in isolation, but in relationship to one another. So it means building relationships with one another, listening to one another's stories, hearing each other, being present to one another's pain and joy, and journeying alongside as spiritual companions, even when we cannot understand but can give support. And it requires us to talk about and listen to both our common understandings and our real differences. Now, we may not agree with one another all the time, but what we agree to is to stay at the table, even when it gets hard or complicated or messy. We agree to stay at the table and learn to hear and listen to one another. The Reverend Norbert Capek continued to celebrate the flower communion during the Nazi occupation of then Czechoslovakia. Now, we are experiencing echoes of those times today, where the militarism of the Nazi war machine stripped the rights of Jewish people and gay people and migrant people, and innocent people were murdered by the millions. Not unlike today, the problems of the world and their country then must have seemed too big to fight. Not unlike today, the hate and divisiveness must have been overwhelming. Not unlike today, totalitarianism and rigid nationalism were threatening the fabric of democracy. Not unlike today, there were hundreds of thousands of immigrants needing refuge. Not unlike today, poverty and economic inequity and income inequality was overwhelming. Not unlike today, it was hard to breathe. But instead of hiding in fear or pretending the horror around him did not exist, Reverend Capek preached a courageous message of equity, justice, and liberation, a message of worth and dignity for all, and sacrificed his life for it. He insisted that the Spirit of God dwelt in each and every person, no matter who they were or what they believed. He created a sacrament where members pledged to confess that they accepted others as brothers and sisters without regard to class, race, or other distinction, acknowledging everybody as their friend who is human and wants to be good. End of quote. Dr. Capek opened hearts in a world of hate and enabled people to love again. This is what the Czech Unitarians found in the Flower Communion: the love of all people, no matter their diversity. And this is why the Flower Communion is so important to us to this day. It is a reminder to all of us of the beauty in diversity, the dignity in freedom, and our commitment to respect and love across and despite our differences. One of my favorite quotes from Dr. Maya Angelou is, "Love recognizes no barriers. It jumps hurdles, leaps fences, penetrates walls to arrive at its destination full of hope." Each week, we attempt, imperfectly, to hurdle the lure of apathy, exhaustion, indifference, and fear to gather as one community. It may be an online community, but we are still one. We leap fences created by homophobia and transphobia, sexism and misogyny, classism and ageism, ableism, anti-Semitism and Islamophobia, and racism to be as one body. We penetrate walls most of society and most religious traditions use to divide, and we arrive at our destination here with hope. For as Dr. Angelou said, "I know for sure love saves me, and it's here to save all." And in developing, nurturing, cultivating such love that recognizes no barriers, we begin by lifting up, honoring, and engaging with the diversity among us. So together, we lift up and honor our lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender siblings for bringing their lives, their experiences, their families, their gifts, and their trust into the life of this church, when it might be easier for them to be with a community of their own with common experiences and common challenges. We lift up and celebrate our members who are Black, Native, Brown, Latinx, Asian, or Pacific Islander, who bring their experiences, their families, their gifts, and their trust into the life of this congregation and choose to be part of a predominantly white religious community and choose to be engaged in service of an aspiration more than a reality. We lift up and celebrate our members with differing abilities, whose presence calls us to think about what welcoming truly means and to honor their gifts, their trust, their families, which they bring into the life of this community of faith when it is a real struggle to be in community with people who have been socialized to look away from disability or to take their own temporary ability for granted. We lift up our members who are low wealth or poor, who struggle with food and housing insecurity, whose gifts, talents, families, and trusts are precious to us. When the wealth and security of others around them in their community can be uncomfortable and assuming. We lift up our young people, our children and youth, our parents and singles, our young adults and seniors, and the gifts, families, and trusts they bring to us each week to help us be in community, a community across ages. We lift up and honor our humanists, our theists, our naturalists and earth-centered spiritualists, our atheists and agnostics, our Christians, Buddhists, and Jews, and the odd Hindus, all who bring their families, their gifts, their trust to us, so that our lives and their lives are richly rewarded by this pluralistic communion. All this is reminding us about what true community means, both in concept and in practice. Reverend Dr. Polly Murray wrote that true community is based upon equality, mutuality, and reciprocity. It affirms the richness of individual diversity as well as the common ties that bind us together. And this is what the Flower Communion is all about. Lifting up and celebrating the things that each one of us unique and beautiful, at the same time honoring our common humanity. The flowers are not perfect, and neither are we. Still, there is incredible beauty in each of the flowers and in each of us. And together, we create a beautiful bouquet. Strong and vibrant, loving and courageous, interdependent and interconnected, the beloved community. This is what we celebrate today. This ritual grounds us in our history and in the commitments at the heart of our religious faith. Here is the story. The Flower Communion is a uniquely Unitarian Universalist celebration created by Czech Unitarian ministers, the Reverends Norbert and Maha Capek, who founded the modern Unitarian movement in the Czech Republic. They introduced this special service to that church on June 4th, 1923.
Dr. Capek was born on June 3rd, 1870, in what was then Czechoslovakia. He became a reporter during the First World War. He then came to the United States, where he served in the Army intelligence during the war.
Norbert met and married Maha in New York, and they became Unitarians. They returned to Prague in 1921 and founded the Unitarian Church with the help of the American Unitarian Association. Maha was ordained in 1926.
The Prague church services consisted of lectures and some music. The Capeks felt the lectures alone were quite dry and boring. So they saw the need for some symbolic ritual that would bring people closer together as a religious community. And so they created the Flower Communion service.
For this service, everyone was asked to bring a flower to church, and during the service, members would place their flower inside a large vase. Toward the end of the service, each person took a different flower from the vase.
When Maha came to the United States in the spring of 1940, she introduced the flower communion to the Unitarians at the First Parish Church in Cambridge, Massachusetts.
When the Nazis took control of Prague in 1940, they found Dr. Capek's gospel of the inherent worth, dignity, and beauty of every human person to be, as Nazi court records show, too dangerous to the Reich for him to be allowed to live.
In March 1941, Capek and his youngest daughter were arrested by the Gestapo and sent to Dresden prison. Later, he was transferred to the Dachau concentration camp where he was killed in October of 1942.
Before his death, Capek's courage in the face of torture and starvation was a source of inspiration to his fellow prisoners. He organized the flower communion service in prison as well. After the war, survivors testified the Unitarian minister could not have been sent to a place where he was more needed.
The Reverend Dr. Capek's message of human hope and decency and his sacrificial commitment to justice and freedom lives on through the flower communion.
We were able to celebrate the ritual of flower communion in person on site on Wednesday, June 9th. And we'd like to share with you a wonderful video of that time that was created by Cathy Grubman. And whether you were able to be there in body or whether you are engaging with the flower communion in spirit, we'll also leave you with a wonderful and rare video that was created by Cathy Bryant, which shows the night blooming cereus flower bloom. We are having our flower communion ceremony, and this is our first major celebration that we are having where we're able to do pieces of the ritual more directly on site.
Okay, oh God. Means we get to see each other, we get to hug each other, we get to be present to one another.
And that just being in the courtyard and being essentially in the sanctuary. I mean, it's been so much part of our lives.
Well, right here we're putting flowers into baskets. Everyone who's come here has brought a flower with them, and we had a few extras just in case. And then we're going to there's some children here, so they're going to take the baskets and take them over to a table that's in the courtyard.
Take these sunken eyes and learn to see.
Because I don't know at Cedar Lane whether we've ever had an outdoor flower communion. I know we've never had an outdoor massed flower communion. So it's wonderful to see you all and wonderful to be together. The flower communion is a uniquely Unitarian Universalist celebration created by Czech Unitarian ministers, the Reverends Norbert and Maha Capek.
There's also historically an act of resistance. So what a joy it is that we can celebrate in this together.
I got a beautiful one. I don't know what it is.
During the pandemic, I felt incredible sadness. I felt like I had been torn away from my family. So being here today feels like a family reunion.
We'll be able to exchange flowers and acknowledge the beauty and uniqueness of each individual person and the collective beauty that we create together.
What a beautiful ritual of community, connection, and covenant. Our benediction is from the Reverend Dr. Norbert Capek. In the name of providence, which implants in the seed the future of the tree, and in the hearts of all people, the longing to live in love. In the name of sages and great religious leaders who sacrificed their lives to hasten the coming of peace and justice, let us renew our resolution to be real siblings, regardless of any kind of bar which separates us from one another. In this resolution, may we be strengthened, knowing that we are one family, that the spirit of love unites us as we strive for a more perfect and joyful life. So may it be. Go in peace, go making peace, living gently, loving mightily, and bowing to the mystery. Blessed be.
C'est ton intérieur qui sauce